Hi, everyone. Welcome to Meet the Mailers, where print and direct mail leaders share ideas, strategies, and experiences that drive engaging and profitable mail. I'm Paul Bobnak for Who's Mailing What, a direct mail 2.0 company. And on today's program, I'm talking with Scott Harvey. He's Senior VP of Direct Marketing at Quad. Now, before we get started, if you have any questions or feedback, please comment in the box below. You can show your support by tapping the like button. And to be notified of when we add new videos to the Who's Mailing What channel, click on subscribe. Now let's meet the mailers. Hi, Scott. Welcome.
Hey, Paul, thanks for having me. Excited to be on, excited to be talking about the mailbox and the return to touch and what consumers like about walking down to the end of their driveway and opening that door and interacting with a piece. It's awesome.
Yeah, well, that's what we're all about here at Who's Mailing What and Direct Mail 2.0 and directmail2.0.ai. So why don't we get started though, talking about you. Everybody has their own unique story from where they started to where they are today. What's your journey been in your career up to where you are now?
Yeah, well, behind me here, you'll see the Miami University. So that's Miami of Ohio. I got my degree there in marketing. And in the mid 90s, I went to work for an organization selling business forms and labels. And so
Okay.
probably most of the folks on this podcast that are watching or listening to it, don't recall the multiple part business forms that we used to have back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
Graduated, kind of from that to the year early in 2000, got into direct marketing and just fell in love with it. Throughout my career, I've had a couple stints leading an in-store business and a packaging business as well, but found my way back to Quad, and now I get the opportunity to lead the direct marketing business.
Hmm. Okay. So, this is a tall order, given the size and the breadth of Quad, right? But can you give like kind of a quick rundown of all the company's services and what you guys do for people who maybe aren't familiar with Quad?
Yeah, well, we turned 55 this year, so it's pretty remarkable. Great organization and a great culture. Headquartered just outside of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, in a town called Sussex. We like
Hmm.
to refer to ourselves as a marketing experience company,
Correct.
and sometimes people think, "Well, you're an event marketer." No, that's really not the way that we interpret that. It's really about focusing on the marketer. They're focused on the consumer experience, and so we want to be focused on the marketer's experience. And we're rooted with our production roots in print. Like I said, we're 55 years old. Back in the day when Harry Quadracci started our organization, producing publications, and then that graduated into retail inserts and catalogs. And since then, maybe the last 10 or 15 years, we've done a lot of different acquisitions. We've consolidated the print industry down, but we've extended into a lot of marketing services. And so today we've got a full media organization under the umbrella of Rise. We've got a tremendous creative team under the umbrella of Betty. We've got an amazing data stack that we just launched this past year. And of course, we root everything with technology and obviously the emergence of artificial intelligence and AI. And with that, right, we can really reach the consumer through the screens in your house, the screen in your pocket, the billboards that you drive by on the highway, the in-store displays that you see inside of brick and mortar, the screens that you might now see through our in-store media network, and then ultimately through the mailbox, right? And back to the business that I get the opportunity to lead here at Quad, which is the direct marketing segment of the business.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's really amazing seeing, uh, from my perspective, the growth of Quad over the years. Just tremendous growth through acquisitions and new ventures.
Yeah, just recently we started up a direct marketing agency that we refer to as direct, and
Okay.
it's really encompassing all the elements that you need in order to be a world-class performing direct marketer. And so it starts with tremendous strategy, right? It feeds into audience, it ties into creative, of course, execution, and then ultimately back to measurement, right? And so you have to kind of ground that with world-class account management, and then
Hmm.
you have to have this quest for always wanting to learn. And, today, we refer to that as test and learn, but as I'm sure you and I will get into, right, we're going to try to displace that methodology with more of a learn and test mindset.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, uh, the full breadth of services that are available now for marketers just encompasses so many different services.
Yeah, think about what it takes to just execute a campaign, right? You need a data partner. And maybe you need more than one data partner. Oftentimes, I mean, I see various organizations we work with, they have 3, 4, 5 different data partners. You need creative, right?
Yeah.
And again, whether you're building that in-house or whether you're sourcing that through agencies, you need somebody that's going to help set the course of your test and learn agenda. So some kind of strategic engagement, whether that's a consultant or whether that is senior leadership inside your business. Of course, you gotta print it and mail it.
Right.
And then when all those responses are coming back, somebody's got to be able to measure them and determine what are we going to do next to improve. And so all of that, when we look at the landscape of direct marketing, certain organizations, they could be working with 5, 6, 7 different agencies, plus, a slew of different internal functions just to execute one campaign. And so when we talk about marketing experience, it's really how do we streamline and integrate and unify that experience with one supplier that can help, improve performance and reduce the cost that it takes to execute those campaigns.
Right. All under one roof. I like it. I
Yeah,
like it a lot.
it's pretty cool.
Okay, well, let's really get into it. The reason I wanted to have you on the program is because at the National Postal Forum, in May, there was a workshop that you ran with Sean O'Neill of One Main Financial, talking about an innovative way to predict winning campaigns. And it really struck me as being an important type of innovation because what everybody's talking about, is lots of different ways to get into the mail more affordably and faster than ever before, right? So why don't you talk about some of the details of this new model, what you and OneMain did together, and how you overcame the limitations of older testing?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it was an absolute blast to present with Sean, and he's great people, and One Main is just a tremendous organization, and them allowing us to tell the story in front of that audience at the NPF is just tremendous because it's really supportive of our industry. Getting into what Sean and I talked about, right, which is the pain points that today's direct marketer feels is really predicated on the cost structure that has evolved here the last 10 years, right? If you go back 10 years ago, postage was probably minimally half, it was maybe 60, more than that. It's gone up in the last 10 years. And, at that conference, we talked about mail equals math. It's just a math equation, right?
Right.
I'm going to mail X number of pieces. My predictive models are going to tell me I'm going to get Y responses, and that's going to prove itself out in an ROI model. And eventually, the cost structure goes up. I can't afford to mail as deep into that file, right? And out there at the NPF, I talked about 10 years ago, you might have had a mailer mailing 20 million pieces a month. And good direct marketing tactics would tell you should be testing 20% of your mail file. Well, that would be 4 million pieces, right, to test in a given month. And if your test sells 400,000, that's 10 test cells a month. Maybe 4 for audience, maybe 3 or 4 for creative, and 2 maybe for offers. And all of a sudden you've got 10 great. And if you're winning 1 out of 10, you're probably getting an increase in your control, each month on one of those 10 test cells. Well, today, if prices have gone up more than 50%, that 20 is now 10.
Right.
So we're only mailing 10 million. And if we're still true diehards to the industry, we're still mailing 20% of our 10 million. That's 2 million. And so now instead of having 10 test cells, I have 5 test cells. And so they're precious, right? And in today's world, those cells oftentimes still go to a lot of audience solutions, as they should, right? That's still the biggest impact in the piece. So creative testing, offer placement, it tends to get kicked down a little bit but it can yet still have a 30 to 50% impact on what you're doing. And so putting those test cells into market, they're just so precious. Why not go to market with something you think and know is going to win versus just what your gut tells you is going to win creatively? And that's what we developed here at Quad. We released Accelerated Marketing Insights back in 2018. Since then, we've done a ton of pre-market testing studies with our customers, and it's a disruptive mindset. Instead of actually going in market to test, pre-market through our technology and process, through online surveys, run our conjoint analysis, and then identify the winners before you actually go to market. And so it's that test and learn. And what Sean and team at OneMain identified was, yes, let's learn and then test.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, in that example with OneMain Financial, predictive modeling basically replaced much of the traditional testing process. So how confident can marketers be in a model's predictions compared to with results from a live mail test?
Yeah, I think the root of that question is probably, are marketers skeptical that if I do an online survey for creative, will those results actually hold up when I mail somebody a piece of mail at their mailbox?
Right.
And, the math would tell us that today, when marketers do creative testing, they win at about 1 out of 5, 1 out of 10 rate. So a 10 to 20% hit rate on getting creative to increase response above their control. When we do an AMI study, we're winning about 8.5 times out of 10. So we're displacing that control 85% of the time. And yes, you know what? Every marketer that we introduce this concept to, they're skeptical at first. Of course, I was skeptical when we built it. Who wouldn't be? Who's going to think that what we survey, online people with would actually translate into performance through the mailbox? And, the 8-9 years we've been doing this, we've calibrated the studies so well with the kind of the art and the science of this and our conjoint analysis that we want. That's really the backbone of our statistics to the survey panels that we put out there. It's just been phenomenal to see. We've got it dialed in pretty good. So if we, in Sean's case for OneMain, we predicted a 6.5, I think it was a 6.5% increase, and it came in at like 7.1. So it's pretty refined today.
Right. So when a predictive model identifies a likely winner before a campaign launches, what happens to the role for creative testing? Does it disappear, or does it simply kind of move into a different stage of the process?
Yeah, well, remember earlier as I was talking about those test cells, right? And we were doing that fictitious company that went from 20 million to 10 million. So now they're only testing 2 million. Creative testing is always been very, very critical for getting the brands to connect with the consumer, right? That the right creative to the right consumer will respond better. And really, that's what Accelerated Marketing Insights is all about. It's how do we placate that creative? Where should the offer go in that package? Should it go to the upper right? Should it be called out in the middle? Should it be on the left-hand banner? What headline should you use? Should you use a teaser on your OE? And so what we do is we deconstruct creative. We reconstruct it through our surveys and serve that up. And we're testing over 1,800 different combinations in one study. And it would basically take you almost 2 years of in-market testing to get the same amount of creative knowledge and know-how that we do literally in one study. Right. So that's the role of creative is critical. And it was time for the industry to think beyond our yesteryear of learning.
Mm-hmm. Does that include like different formats?
Yeah, so those are what we call concept studies inside of the AMI umbrella. And so we'll serve up, a plethora of different concepts. And then we run a different statistical analysis to try to generate, it's more of a max def model that we use in terms of ranking those out. But primarily it's best of class for creative. We get very strong statistical guidance. I wouldn't say, we can predict a winner from a format perspective as good as we can creative. And that's just because there is still always a tactile element. And you never know if a consumer is going to love a postcard more than a a letter package, or if they're going to want something with bulk or soft touch or whatever that might be. Certain things we can't replicate through an online survey, right?
Right.
Creative is best of class, but we do have solve for that.
Mhm. So, what impact does predictive audience selection have on the speed of a campaign? Can marketers realistically get into the mail stream faster with less investment than under traditional testing models?
Yeah, so it's if you just take the maybe one of the financial segments, like let's take life insurance for an example. Um, you talk to any direct marketer in life insurance, and they will tell you from the time that they drop tests to the time that they get a read and they're back in market, it's probably every bit of 9 to 12 months. And
Hmm.
so just think of what, again, we talk about what it takes to create content. Well, you've got to have a strategy of what kind of, using that life insurance, how are we going to talk about the product, right? Who are we targeting? Then we've got to
Hmm.
generate that copy and that content. Oh, don't forget, that's got to get approved through your legal and compliance teams. You've got to
Absolutely.
apply all the state versioning to that, right? So there's this massive heavy lift. And so you do all that work to hope that you win 1 out of 10 times, or maybe 2 out of 10s if you're best of class.
Right,
Wouldn't
right.
you rather go to market with confidence in that new creative that, hey, I got an 80% chance that this creative is going to win? And so the time frame in which we do a study, we'll conduct studies in about 30 to 45 days. And that literally is from start to finish. That's the kickoff meeting with the customer, establishing our KPIs, identifying our control package, for us to generate all the creative versioning that needs to be done that goes into the study, identifying our audience and who we are going to send the survey universe out to, compiling, our results through our conjoint analysis, and then doing the readout with the customer. So from there, at that 30 to 45 day stage, we then say, okay, creative 1, 2, and 3, not 4 through 10, are our most likely winners. And they say they're going to get a 12%, a 10%, and an 8% lift. Let's build those out through final creative. Let's take those through our legal and compliance teams and through our full copywriting team to make sure we get all of our state versioning and the I's and the proverbial T's crossed correctly. And then let's put those into market. And so if your creative winner, just take a calendar year, if you don't get your first creative winner until June, right? You drop in June.
Mhm.
You're not dropping that creative until probably at the earliest, the tail end of Q1 the following year.
Right.
Well, if we do our study in January and you're testing in March, right? You're dropping in Q4 for that same calendar year. So you're accelerating the revenue by almost 6 months. And that's, it's about revenue acceleration for the marketer, right?
Yeah,
That's what they're
absolutely.
ultimately trying to do.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So, looking ahead 3 to 5 years, do you think we'll reach a point where predictive models handle most audiences and offer decisions before a single piece of mail is produced?
Well, we're on this cusp, right? In the next three
Right.
to 5 years with AI. And rarely do I have a conversation with a customer where we don't start talking and engaging on how AI is impacting all the different aspects of what it takes to reach the consumer through the mailbox. Um, Look, in 3 to 5 years, if I knew exactly where the market would be, I would put in some bets in the stock market,
Right,
et
right,
cetera. But I think we have a pretty good vibe as to where that's going to be, right? AI is it's not a replacement.
right.
I had an accountant once tell me AI is like Microsoft Excel, right? It replaced the calculator with spreadsheets.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
what AI is able to do is incredible. And it's going to streamline a lot of the processes, the data analysis, the predictive modeling that you alluded to. It's going to have a massive impact on all of that. But what it's not going to be able to do is ultimately tell us, how is the consumer going to fall in love with my brand? Am I going to take action?
Hmm.
And it might be able to help us refine our predictive modeling,
Hmm.
but we still need humans that are going to make those decisions at the end of the day. We are incorporating AI into our accelerated marketing insights.
Sure.
We'd be
Yeah,
foolish not to.
absolutely.
Today, one of the reasons, 4 or 5 years ago, it used to take us 90 days to do a study. Well, now it's 30 to 45. And And really that swag of 15 is just how quickly we get things done with the customer in terms of sign off and approvals, et cetera. And so much of that is because AI now is doing a lot of our conjoint analysis and reporting. So our creative is the first generation of that. We're generating that through AI, and then we're refining it with our creative team. So it's coming. The next 3 to 5 years is going to be really, really interesting to see the impacts that it continues to have on not only our industries, but the adjacent marketing industries in which Quad serves.
Oh yeah, all of them. I mean, I think that people who make predictions, about those roles, you know, don't go to the stock market, like you said, based on that.
Yeah. It was interesting. I had a good friend in town for the July 4th weekend, and he's responsible for all of the global content for IBM, right? And,
Mhm.
when you think about an institution that large, and I asked him a lot around what they're doing to create content. And it used to be you would structure and organize your content to, come to the top of a Google search. And
Well, yeah,
now it's how do you get your content to resonate and be top of that third page that your AI agent is responding back to you with. And
hmm
so it's fascinating to know where this is going to go. I think we're just starting to scratch the surface on things like generative AI.
oh yeah,
I mean, if you ever see a photo, can we believe a photo ever again?
no, probably not, not
No.
easily. Yeah, yeah. I think you're right about that because as these algorithms change and where things get placed in a Google search, like you said, um, it's incumbent upon companies to really rethink where they're what type of content and where they're putting it on their sites, and really rethinking it. I mean, the FAQs page is now getting dusted off and getting the attention it probably deserved a long time ago.
The one thing I'll say about AI, it's made what I get the opportunity to do actually kind of grow in relevance with the
Mhm,
consumer.
mhm.
Direct mail, I heard this phrase and I use it all the time now. Direct mail creates a moment of focus in a world
Right.
that's built to distract.
Yeah.
And that's what's so
Uh,
fascinating about it, right? And that we get the opportunity to take a brand, find a consumer, right? Help them create the right content and offer and package, and then try to bring those two together to ultimately, help that marketer grow incrementality in terms of revenue and their earnings. And at the simplistic terms, it does that. And with AI touching so many things that we do on screens, this return to touch, right? The consumer
yeah.
really
Right.
enjoys interacting with brands in which they touch things. And I think in store you're seeing more elaborate displays inside of stores these days than maybe we've ever seen in the past. But this return to touch is real, and especially for the younger generation, right? They've seen themselves on a screen 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times
Right.
probably if you're a Snapchat person, right? What they haven't seen is their name in print.
Right.
Um, you and I grew up with the newspaper. Remember when you made the newspaper, how cool that was? Well,
Right.
today, that next generation, when they see their name on a direct mail piece and it's the right brand and it's the right offer, I think we've got something really special for the industry as we go forward.
hmm Yeah. To me, it's the combination of those personalized touches when you're using VDP in conjunction with uh, you mentioned before about soft touch and other embellishments and finishes, which again go back to that touch, something that has this quality about it, that tactile quality that you can't get on a screen, you can't get on your phone. Everything looks the same on your phone.
Yeah, yeah. I'm a consumer, right? So I love getting mail. For many years, when I first got into this industry, and you tell people, "What do you do?" And the most simplified way I would say that is, all that stuff you get in your mailbox, I make all that stuff.
Right, right.
And they're like, "Oh, I got you to blame." I'm like, "Wait, tell me about one of the ones that you responded to." And then
Right.
they would actually, rarely have I ever had anybody say, "Well, I don't respond to anything," because if we do our jobs, right, and we do them right, we can find the right consumer with the right brand, with the right offer at the right time, and they will respond.
Right.
So
Well, you lead me into
interesting to
my
see where. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, you lead me into my next question, which is, um, as a marketer, but also as a consumer, what's one mail piece that you received recently that really, made you stop and pay attention, maybe nerd out over some aspect of it, but uh, and responded to?
Well, first of all, as a long time industry person, it would almost be like asking me which of my kids do I love more. Right? Just because I'm fascinated by all the different degrees of direct mail in which I receive here, whether it's a restoration, hardware catalog that, might be an inch thick and has all the latest and greatest, and it's just kind of fun to thumb through, all the way down to maybe a postcard from Kroger's that's going to give me $10 off the next time I go in to buy my groceries. I guess the ones that I really appreciate the most really are the ones that understand, who I am, who my wife is, and what our household is about. And, we are outdoors people. We love being on water. We love being around water. We like golf. We like hiking. And so when brands like that show up in my mailbox, it's really hard not to flip through and oftentimes, take action, scan that QR code, maybe go out to their website and make a purchase.
Right. Yeah, that's what it's all about, right? Pretty simple.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we're about the end of our time here. For people who are interested in learning more about your new testing model or anything else related to what you guys are all about, how can they get in touch with you and Quad?
Well, the simplest way is quad.com/direct. And that will
Okay.
take you directly to our page. You scroll to the bottom and you can put your information in there. You can also, there's a comment section in there. So specifically what you're looking for. But look, if there's a marketer out there and they want to connect with me personally, SM Harvey, HARVEY at quad.com. Just shoot me an email and would be happy to follow up with anybody directly.
So thank you for joining us today. Remember, questions and feedback are welcome. Tap those like and subscribe buttons. And if you want to be highlighted in a future Meet the Mailers, please reach out. My contact info can be found in the paragraph below by tapping Show More. And we'll talk about how we can showcase your company, your solutions, and your thought leadership. Thanks for watching, and see you here next time.